The State Department now is responding to reports that Iran has offered to give up its enriched uranium, that it falls short, really, of the demands from the West. A spokesman says today that Iran's idea of swapping nuclear rods for uranium is nothing new. It's not acceptable, the terms that Iran is placing on this. In the meantime, the guy you see there, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, is ratcheting up the rhetoric, saying in a speech today, quote, "No power can harm Iran. The Iranian nation will chop off the hands from the arm of any attacker from any part of the world." Joe Cirincione is with us, president of the Plowshares Fund. It's a foundation dedicated to funding peace and security initiatives. He's also the author of the book Bomb Scare, The History and Future of Nuclear Weapons. Joe, good to see you. I guess we'll start with cutting off the hands. What do you make of what we're hearing from Ahmadinejad?
Thank you, Jane. This is a lot of bluster. This is like the schoolyard bully telling you what he's going to do if you don't give him your lunch money. Very few experts think that Iran can go ahead and build the new enrichment plants they've been talking about. They're actually having a lot of technical problems with their program. This kind of talk is aimed at two audiences. One, the Iranian public. He's trying to change the subject and divert some of the anger that the Iranian public feels towards him and portray the United States as the real villain. I don't think it's going to work. And the other is other countries. He's trying to scare other countries, prevent them from joining America in a new round of sanctions against Iran. Again, I don't think that's going to work. I think Iran is going to get further isolated at home and abroad.
If you're talking about these technical problems you say they're having, are we overplaying the threat then? Should we not be worried?
No, there is a real threat. They are making concrete steps towards nuclear weapons capability. And part of that threat is what's the subject of this deal, this uranium that they've enriched to low levels. And they now have about 2,000 pounds of this material that they could convert in about a year or so into nuclear weapons material. But they're having technical problems. The latest reports we've gotten from the IAEA show that they're actually running fewer centrifuges now than they were in May, and that the output from these centrifuges is actually down. So while these are problems they can solve over time, but they do not have nuclear weapons now. They're at least a year or two away from such a capability, and if they tried to break out and rush to do nuclear weapons, we would see them doing it and could take appropriate action.
When we talk about what the world can do to pressure Iran, it was interesting, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said, what I would like to see are these sanctions involving the curtailing of imports and exports of oil outside of what the United Nations may or may not be able to do. Do you see that coming?
You do see, Israel, it's very interesting. Israel is talking much less about strikes on Iran. You often see op-eds calling for military strikes, but Israel, which could do this, is talking less about this because I believe they see Iran as weak as I do, that this is a regime isolated at home, isolated regionally, isolated globally, more than they've ever been, and they believe that tough sanctions might actually destabilize the regime, nullifying the need for strikes. Israel would like the other countries of the world to go in that direction.
It's interesting, too, we also heard from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mullen, not ruling out a military strike, but the consequences of a strike by either the United States or Israel, those would be pretty significant.
They are. Mullen just came back from a trip and said that while everything's on the table, as it should be, he's worried about the unintended consequences of a strike on Iran. That is, there is no answer here. A military strike would buy at most a year and a half to 2 years delay in the Iranian program, could actually accelerate the program, rally the Iranian public around the regime, and it could, and this is what Mullins is talking about, stoke a third Middle East war in the region. So the military is very cautious about strikes. They don't see the need for a strike. They don't see it as an answer, and they don't see the international support for it at this time.
Joe Cirincione, author of Bomb Scare. Joe, good to see you. Thanks.
My pleasure, Jane.